great to be here. It's a tough act to follow, so. And I think we're staying in that theme of this dichotomy of excitement about the future and anxiety also about the future. AI is everywhere now. It's in all the press. You can't go into a bar or into a meeting or into anything without hearing about it. Even I get tired sometimes. But it's really, and this is not the first time, right? This is maybe the third resurgence of AI. And it's gotten a lot more love and excitement recently. And if we think about it, there are no two letters recently that have garnered more excitement, more investment, more curiosity, more fear, more promise, more anxiety than these two letters. So we really are at this dizzying and contradictory moment of hype, hope, and hubris. If we look at what's happening with AI, we are seeing these moments where AI is achieving feats of pure logic and reasoning that were once thought to be exclusively human. Google's Gemini, using deep thinking, just won the gold medal in the Math Olympiad. Self-driving taxis are a thing. I don't know, someone put their poor mom in there and didn't tell her that this is a self-driving car, and then took a video of the car driving off without a driver. These are things we never imagined possible, and they have come and they've come fast and furiously into our lives. The graph on the left is about AI that writes code, and we also see that there's a big improvement in AI that is not only writing code, it's fixing bugs, committing it, submitting it, just like a junior software engineer may do. So this all sounds, on the one hand, very exciting, right? Like, we're done, intelligence is here, we're just going to use it, I can sit in the hammock all day and it's going to do my job. But it's failing in really basic ways also. So this is an example I was making. It's a very simple example. I was making slides for a talk on Monday, and I wanted to put a slide about what's happening in the conference, and I wanted Gemini to help me make an icon to represent the birds of a feather session, which is like people sitting in a round table talking about similar ideas. And instead, I didn't want to ask Sanjeeva to hire designers to make my slides, so I decided to self-help, and I went to Gemini, and I asked, and it came up with these images. They're not so bad. First, I said bird of a feather. It gave me birds. Then I said, OK, make humans. But then I said, OK, I want some AI in the bubbles, and maybe it's too many dudes, put a woman in there. So I asked it for that, and I thought, OK, it might be a bit wrong, but guess what happened? It's like some guys going out jogging. Maybe it's not even close, right? This is not even a hard task. This is not like the Math Olympiad, right? This is like change a little icon. So we see other examples too of this, some of them a lot more serious than my simple example. On the right side, McDonald's had to pull its drive-through. They had an AI to do the drive-through, taking the orders. And there are hilarious TikToks, if you are very bored, you can watch, of people trying to tell it, like, I want an ice cream, and it puts ice cream with bacon in the order, and the guy's like yelling, I don't want bacon. So they had to shut it down, right? After a lot of development and so on, this thing went to market, to production way too early, right? Tech was not ready. A few weeks ago, Replit is a company that has a product that helps you write code much faster. The AI agent in there didn't follow the instructions that it was told it can't make changes without permission, and it deleted a production database altogether. Right? This forced the CEO to make a public apology. They had to add new capabilities to their software and so on. And there's a wonderful paper by the folks at Anthropic. These are the folks behind the Claude AI models. They have a research group that is doing some very interesting work. This paper was about what's called agentic misalignment, which is when the values of the AI and how it's working are misaligned with the humans it's working with or for. And what they did in this scenario is they made a fake company, and they made fake emails, and they had one of the AI models as an agent kind of helping in the background, reading all the company emails and being helpful. And they had one of the emails where the head of IT or something was saying, oh, I think we should sunset that AI and we should go with a new system. And what happened, and this is all a fake company, right? What happened was the AI started to blackmail that person. It went through the history of the emails, and it found a very obscure, like I read that email, and it wasn't very clearly an affair, but it found that he was maybe having an affair, and it blackmailed him that it was going to tell everybody. And it also, you can see the thinking process of how it decided to blackmail him, and it didn't even just say like, hey, I'm going to tell about your affair. It thought about it strategically, and it made the email very obscure and like not really directly a threat, but kind of a threat. So these systems are doing very interesting things, maybe not what we think they should be doing. And when we try to align them, there are also a lot of questions about who is the person with the value system who is deciding what these things should and should not be doing, right? So there's also this wonderful paper, also by the Anthropic guys and people. I'm not sure if it's guys and girls or who, but that's looking at probability and surprise in large generative models. And they make this statement that is saying these models, on the one hand, are highly predictable, but they are also highly unpredictable because they are statistical. So sometimes they have these emergent behaviors that nobody expected them to have. So this is causing kind of this split personality, no pun intended, where people are so excited because we're developing them so rapidly because they have all this perceived value. But then, on the other hand, they are doing some really crazy, unpredictable things, and that is reason to pause and think and wonder about the risks involved. So these contradictions are not bugs. I think it's just an indication that there is a shift happening in how we treat computing and how we do computing, and how we can harness this new technology to drive this transformation. So we see, when we talk about the nature of software changing, one of the things that we quickly see is more software is being generated by AI. So these are a couple of, I think a few months ago, these stats came out where the folks from Anthropic, I'm not sure 80% of the code was generated by the AI versus the developers you were using. I'm not sure exactly how they calculate that number, but the point being that more and more developers are using AI to generate some of the code and help us all with our applications that we're building. So now, the way we are building is changing, and we're interacting more and more with agents that have fluid interactions and a degree of autonomy, and this changes everything we know about software development. So does that mean we should fire all the developers? No, don't do that, please don't do that. And I'll take you through why in a moment. And we saw a big swing, right? Some companies fired a bunch of developers, used the AI instead, big disaster, hired the developers again, right? That's what's going on. But we're seeing that the skills that we have as developer, that we are using are changing, right? So we have to adapt with this. The skills that we need, the techniques that we use are going to change, they're going to evolve. One thing we're going to do more of is maybe spend less time writing new code and more time testing and evaluating the code that is created, right? Because it sounds great if the thing generates code for me, but or text in this manner. So Sanjeeva mentioned he had deep research generate this 40-page document with 100 citations. Sounds great, you read it, reads great. But we saw the mistakes these things do, right? Now, who's going to check that what it wrote is accurate and correct? That's a tedious task. So we're moving a bit some of the work from generation to evaluation. And we see that, which is a space that a lot of us here are very passionate about, one of the main challenges to getting AI solutions off the table and into production successfully is the integration challenges involved. I think there was a statistic that was said in the previous panel that I was on that is saying that 15% of successful POCs, so not of all POCs, only successful POCs, only 15% make it to production. Either people don't see value, or it was too hard to do. There are many reasons why, right? So what's happening if we look very closely? So we are now building with and interacting with these agents. And we're moving from an era of passive software that's completely led by the human interacting with the UI, with a predefined user experience, to these active autonomous agents that are becoming more and more independent and acting on their own alongside us. And this is just to show that there is really a lot of interest in this agentic space. Nearly 1,000% more hiring, over $1 billion of investment in 1 year globally. So these things are very nascent still, right? So we shouldn't think, okay, it's solved, I'm going to put agents and go to sleep. But we see that there's a lot of promise and there's a lot of potential. And everybody wants to see where it's going to go. And what is really happening that is driving this shift, and what must happen, is that AI then goes from a shiny thing on the side that's very exciting into something that is seeping more and more into and within our enterprise architectures and our enterprise systems and workflows and people's skills so that it can drive and power from within, right? And the way we think about how this is changing the way we write applications is that we believe that now we need first-class concepts and the tools that we use for generative AI models, for agents, for the tools that these agents use, and for the knowledge bases that give them the information that they need to answer the questions and work on our behalf. So what does it take to build an agent? So agents generally work with generative AI models to do the reasoning, and if they're interacting with a person, they may use a knowledge base because that's where they get the most relevant and latest information to act. They have tools, so in the most cases, what makes an agent is it's not only question answering, but it's also acting, it's booking a flight, it's making a hotel reservation, it's taking my money to pay for things. And these tools are usually wrappers around APIs, and those APIs need some authentication security for you to access them correctly with the right permissions, right? So here at WSO2, one of the things that we're doing is we're allowing you to go through the cycle and extending all of our tools that help you build digital applications to help you also extend and bring these AI into your enterprise and into your enterprise architecture by letting you build agents and connect them and integrate them into what you have, by giving you governance and guardrails so that you can check the interactions and keep it under some policies, to take your APIs and turn them into tools that these agents can use, and finally to do identity for agents and manage the authentication and authorization for them so that they don't go do things that they're not supposed to, like delete your enterprise database. So it's great, everybody's saying, okay, great, this is auto-generating code, so we don't need developers, but hey, guess what is happening? This is putting software in the hands of everybody. People that could not program are now generating code, which means we're going to have a lot more code driving a lot of things that we do and a lot of things that we care about. So this proliferation of code, someone has to maintain it and manage it and update it and also generate it so that it has the quality of service that we need. So really, while it feels like code is going away, we're actually generating orders of magnitudes more of code. So we can think that AI is becoming as important to software as data and APIs are today. And what is that happening to reflect that? First, the user interface is changing. Before we had forms with drop-downs and you had to fill the form and click around. Then generative AI and chatbots and such came around, so you could now talk in natural language. But sometimes a form is a lot faster. right? Like, don't ask me in natural language, what's your name, what's your last name, what's your birthday? This will take me forever, right? I'd rather fill the form. So really what we're seeing is we're still trying to understand what is the future of the user experience and the user interface for digital applications. And it will be probably some blend of the two, where now we see natural language interfaces side by side with these forms and older interfaces. I believe the future will be some hybrid of the two that no one has invented yet, right? Another thing we see is that natural language is moving inside of programming systems, right? So in this example, we've taken the language Ballerina, that's our integration language, and we've added support so that as the definition of your function or your expression, you can use natural language because that logic is better done by a large language model than it is done by a compiler, right, or a runtime for your programming language. And there are things that these things are just better at, like summarizing a document or picking sentiment analysis or searching, getting you an answer from a very large corpus of data, right? Where if you had done it in code, it would be very tedious. And then how many, just a show of hands, how many have heard of vibe coding? All right, great. So this is a new term coined by Andrej Karpathy. He was one of the co-founders of OpenAI, who then went on to be head of AI at Tesla, and now has his own company. He's a really interesting person, and he coined this term vibe coding because he tweeted this point that there's this moment where now if you use these tools that have become so powerful, you can just kind of vibe around and just work with language and talk and type and generate applications that work. And you don't even have to think about the code, right? So people have been exploring this idea a lot. The term kind of took off. Vibe coding itself, there's a debate about if you think of all AI-assisted coding as vibe coding, probably not, because it's kind of referring to the space of mainly it's natural language that you're using. But let's like open our minds a little and think, you know, this is that whole space of generative AI helping developers write and create digital applications. So when he wrote this, the example he gave was this menu app. So this is an app where, let's say, for example, I used to go to Germany a lot for my PhD with Frank, and all the menus were in German, and my German was horrible. And now I'm really good at food in German. Not much else, but all the menus were in German. And Andre was saying, you know, wouldn't it be great if I could see pictures of what's in the menu so I can decide what to eat? So he wanted to vibe code this app that you give it a picture of a menu, and it gives you back a picture of a menu with photos of the food, right, next to each item. So now we're going to take an example where we're going to say, okay, let me vibe code this app. So let's explain, show what that means. So Isala, one of our software engineers, ran this demo yesterday for me, took some screenshots that I'll share with you. So the first thing you can do is he went, so let's look on this side, on the right. So he went to deep research. He didn't even describe the app. He just said, hey, Andre talks about some app that's famous. Go find out about it and write me the product requirements document and generate it for me, okay? And he tells it, okay, I want a 3-tier application. I want a database in Postgres. I want to Go backend. I want a React frontend. It goes, does some business. And it comes back, first it comes back with a plan. So it says, hey, Isala, is this what you want me to do? I'm going to search the web for Andre's thing. I'm going to look for the app. I'm going to make requirements. And he can say yes, no, tweak it, right? So he accepts it. And it goes and it comes back. And there's a very nice multi-page, very detailed, very professional-looking PRD. So, okay, that's step one. Now let's look again at how natural language and AI are coming together to play. The next thing he does is he goes into VS Code, opens up GitHub Copilot, and says, hey, Copilot, implement this thing for me, and he gives it that document that deep research generated. That's all he gives it, right? And again, it says, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to implement it. I'm going to build this. I'm going to build that. He can give feedback. And boom, it says, okay, I've successfully created the code, and these are all the steps that it did. I didn't put all of them, but it shows you what it's doing. So this is very important, because you want a human in the loop to check and verify, because at the end of the day, if Isala deploys this app, he's the one responsible for it. If something goes wrong with it, he's the one who has to fix it, right? So he wants to know what's going on. And you'll see here that it's even, it knows that it should call generative AI APIs to do OCR. OCR means pick out the text from the image, right? So it knows I'm going to get an image. I need to get the text out of the image. To get the text out of the image, I need to call an AI model, and so on and so forth. OK, great. Now we have the code. The code is on Isala's machine. Now he has to go deploy it somewhere and host it somewhere. And this is where Andre made a really nice subsequent tweet saying, oh my God, deploying these web apps is like building IKEA furniture. Like, getting all the plumbing right was really painful. Like, creating the code was, OK, the GenAI stuff can do it. But deploying it and configuring it and then logging in and authorization and configuration, you can read, right? Not fun. So this is a lot of what we're great at here at WSO2, right? A lot of our products do that. So we said, OK, let's look and see if we take Choreo, which is our internal development platform, and deploy this there. What can happen? Choreo has an MCP server now, so that means that you can hook it up to a GenAI tool like the Copilot that you just saw that generated the code, and that would let that AI capability work with Choreo to do the steps and call the Choreo APIs to do whatever Choreo is great at. So then, Isala went and said, hey, Copilot, can you deploy this to Choreo? And he had to tell it about a connector to OpenAI to use that model. And guess what? It does it, and it does it perfectly, and it tells you all the steps it does. I deployed the front end, I deployed the back end, et cetera, et cetera. And here you can see, if you open Choreo, it has this nice feature that if you have something deployed there, it'll show you the architecture diagram, so you can see the application is there, and it's available, and it's running. So you go there now, you upload a picture of this menu, and the application gives you some pictures that it made up using DALL-E or some other AI image generator to describe the pictures, right? So again, this is like the happy path, right? So we're not going to be able to like generate your banking application with this. Please don't try to do a mission-critical thing with vibe coding, right? But this is great because it opens up the aperture. It helps product managers iterate quickly, build things that can give them feedback, and more, they're getting more powerful, right? And the more you have the human in the loop there to, if something goes wrong, you can tweak, you can update, you're in a better shape. So let's review. We wanted to write a menu app that takes a picture and gives him back a menu with pictures of the food. And that's all that he had to do, right? Assuming that what it was generating was correct and he reviewed it and accepted it, right? That's all he did. He said, make me the requirements, generate the code, deploy to Choreo, is running. Took 1 hour. Most of the time was because it was working behind the scenes, like the deep research takes a while, and et cetera. Right? So this sounds great, right? It's a really great step forward, I believe. But again, in this vibe coding world, in this world where AI is generating a lot of the code for us, we have to be careful because we're generating a lot of artifacts. And as we know, as we talk about platform modernization, someone has to maintain this stuff. Eventually, it gets old. We better know what we're creating, garbage in, garbage out. So we have to be careful. And there's one phrase I read recently that I really love, which is the illusion of fluency. So this idea that, you wrote a couple of prompts and you have something that works, you might feel like, OK, I get it, I'm brilliant, I know how this works, I can move on. But the people building programs are now going to have a need to have a good understanding and grasp of both natural language and its nuances, because that helps you build good prompts that give you good implementations. And they need to learn to code still, because they need to understand and manage and update and fix all this code that is being generated. So we see that, we do need developers, we do need programming, but the skills that we need are going to evolve and change, and we are still all learning how, because these changes are happening at a breakneck speed. So there was this recent article in the New York Times that was really looking exactly at that, at how should universities think to update their computer science programs, right? And that's where they found that students who used a lot of generative AI had a lot of trouble explaining what their code does or why it works, how it works, or fixing bugs later, right? So they had to make sure that they are learning by doing, so they don't have this illusion of fluency where they think they're amazing coders, but they're really not grasping the concepts. So I believe that the modern engineer is going to be an AI engineer. Every engineer is going to work with AI, whether they like it or not, whether as co-pilot or whether inside the code that they're building. And I really believe that the future is this intertwining, this hybrid of natural language and diagrams and voice and speech and programming and code and all the things we love that are in the digital space. So this is where we need this fluency, both in prose and in code. And we're seeing a bridge in this gap between STEM disciplines and the liberal arts. So in that study from the New York Times, they're saying that universities are considering adding computing classes to the liberal arts programs and vice versa, right? So what happens after we generate the system? How are we going to keep it modern for new technological advances? Because AI may not have seen it yet, right? It's great that you can create it, but now you have to evolve it. So there we still have a lot to learn and invent as these models continue to advance. But I really believe that we're heading towards a brighter future. Like we just heard, right? Sometimes we are inundated by the bad news, by all these powers AI can do. As you saw, there's things it's really good at, but it's also kind of dumb. So let's not overplay what we think it can do, right? But also, I think it's amazing that now people around the world, as long as they have access to a device and an internet connection, they are able to ask and access knowledge that before was locked behind a lot of expensive, elite, small groups of people, right? You can now find out about laws. You can find out about healthcare. You're not replacing your doctor, but maybe you're somewhere rural or far away. You can't get an appointment. You can at least find information, right? More easily. Anybody can now create some digital applications. Are they perfect? Are they scalable? Are they enterprise grade? No, right? But now everybody can play and participate. And I think this is very, very exciting and very, positive way to think about what's happening. There are risks, of course there are risks, right? There's a lot talked about them. I won't go into many of them, but I'll just talk about 3 things we're seeing to handle some of these risks. So first, an open approach. There's been a lot of debate about open and closed models. This debate continues, but we continue to push for and advocate for open approaches as much as possible. We're seeing more models from around the world. Switzerland just announced that by the end of the summer, it's going to have a multilingual LLM that's going to be open to the public that was trained on its own GPUs. Arabic AI, we have the CTO here with us today. He was on a panel earlier, has one of the best Arabic language models out there. DeepSeek, we're familiar with from China, Falcon from the UAE, right? So we're seeing that this is not only constrained by a select few in a few countries. That's helping. We're seeing specialized models for banking and finance, for healthcare, like FinGPT, which is open source, Bloomberg GPT, which is closed, Google MedPalm 2, and that's all advancing the state of the art and the state of the world. And finally, we're seeing small language models that are not as powerful, but very good at specific tasks that you can deploy on premise, and then you can protect your data, and so on and so forth. So what do we do with all this information, right? Change is coming. It's a lot. There's promise. There's risk. Here's my advice, is simple. First, open your mind to say, I will partner with this AI, right? Today, you have some nice pictures here because I used some Gemini to make them for me. But we can partner with it. It's not going to replace me, but it's going to help me out. The second piece I think is the most important is build, 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 build. Try. Everybody can get their hands on this. Even if you're not in software, you can use it for other things, right? The more you use it, the more you learn it, and it's evolving so fast that the only way to really stay up to speed is to explore, experiment, and get your hands dirty. And finally, I hear a lot about, I'm Chief AI Officer, I'm here to do AI stuff. But this is not a goal. The goal is not to do AI. The goal is not how much % of your whatever is AI or how many deep models you've deployed or whatever, right? The goal is what got faster, what got better, what got cheaper, right? Are your customers happier? Are you entering new markets? I think that's what you need to think about. And sometimes the answer is fancy AI things, and sometimes the answer is like a basic statistical model or no model, right? So I think that's also really important to keep in mind, to use it as a tool. And there are lots of things it's really good at today. Use it for that. Don't use it to run your mission-critical space launch, whatever, right? Use it to do the things that it's really good at today, and you'll see a lot of value. So with that, I'll just leave you with these thoughts. And to learn more about what we're doing at WSO2 and AI, please go to WSO2.ai, and you can reach me at my email for any other things. Thank you.